Welcome back. You're still watching Network Africa on Channels Television. Now, a memorial park has been unveiled in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. It's in commemoration of the thousands of people who were tortured and abused at the hands of British forces during the colonial era. Here are the details.
A British-funded memorial for those jailed, killed and tortured during the Mau Mau rebellion in Kenya was unveiled in Nairobi as part of a multi-million-dollar compensation settlement for thousands of Kenyans mistreated by colonial forces during an uprising at the tail end of the British Empire. Drawing condemnation from the elderly tortured victims who accused Kenya's former colonial master of using legal technicalities to fight the case. But in 2013, Britain agreed on an out-of-court settlement. The Mau Mau nationalist movement originated in the 1950s among the Kikuyu people of Kenya. Its loyalists advocated violent resistance to British domination of the country. Attending the unveiling of the memorial in Nairobi was Britain's High Commissioner, Dr. Kristen Turner.
As well as the expression of regret and a financial settlement, the British government also pledged to support the construction of a memorial in Nairobi to the victims of torture and ill treatment during the colonial era and to promote reconciliation between all sides. It is that memorial which we are here today to inaugurate.
Dr. Hassan Wario, Kenya's Cabinet Secretary for Sport, Culture and Arts, said the memorial was very significant.
This event is dear to our hearts as it reminds us of the sacrifice and heroism of many Kenyans whose vision and conviction won us freedom and sovereignty.
For many of the Mau Mau veterans in attendance, it was a day full of traumatic memories. The Mau Mau uprising pushed the East African country towards independence in 1963. Most Mau Mau had property, cattle, farmland and food confiscated in a British campaign of dispossession and detention.
For more on this new unveiling, we're joined by the CEO of the International Institute for Legislative Affairs in Kenya, Mr. Vincent Kimosop. Mr. Kimosop, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. How are you?
We're very well, thank you, and I hope you're well as you're also fine. I'd just like you to tell us about how significant this monument is in terms of what it represents for Kenyans.
Number one is that it is an admission that wrong things happened during the fights for independence, and that there was need for this to be addressed. And this is a very kind gesture from the part of the British government, by actually more or less demonstrating that they are sorry for the atrocities that they committed. Number two is that it's also a message. It is a follow-up message on the importance of the rule of law. If you remember, this monument was constructed after the court ruling. So number one was a public apology issued by the British government that was done by the former foreign secretary. The number two was pay the people who were affected by this. And then number three now erect this monument. So that is the second component. And then thirdly is the other questions that this bring up is, what about those who are not in the Mau Mau, yet they also suffered atrocities? So that's what is the conversation that we are having in Kenya. But the most important thing is it's a very symbolic gesture from the British administration.
I do have to ask at this point, Mr. Kimosop, it's indeed a symbolic gesture, like you say, but doesn't it remind people of the torture that they had, that people endured during that time? Isn't it a reminder of that period? And is it something people would want to remember?
You know, we cannot do something, we cannot reverse the past, but we can rise up and deal with it. So yes, it's a reminder of a bad side of history, but these are part of the positive steps that the country is taking towards reversing this. So yes, I admit that it's a reminder of wrong things that happened, but also it's an act of goodwill, and that is how Kenyans are taking this.
Understood. Well, Mr. Kimosop, thank you very much for joining us. We're very grateful for your time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Vincent Kimesop, the CEO, International Institute for Legislative Affairs in Kenya, speaking with us from Nairobi. Still to come on Network Africa. The Burundian president urges military unity after failed plot to kill the army chief last week. And this comes as terror-stricken Burundi refugees see no hope of return.